Just a couple of minutes after 10, so we'll get started. I think we will be between an hour to an hour and a half today. Our top limit would be the 90 minutes, but we may not quite go that long. So, but answering questions along the way, so put them in. Welcome again, FAFSA Tools. We're going to start with the challenge in just a minute, and then we'll talk about the tools that are quite complementary. North Carolina offers a publicly available tracker for FAFSA completion data in the state, as well as a password-protected secure site for professionals at school working with students finish the FAFSA. So I want to introduce you a little bit to the players behind these tools. I'm from SEAA, that's the State Education Assistance Authority. We are your state agency with the mission of helping North Carolina pay for education. We are the ones administering Finish the FAFSA, which is that secure report for high school staff, or staff based at schools. We collaborate, of course, with a number of other terrific organizations in the space, including CFI, College Foundation. And together we provide CFNC.org, which is a free service to the citizens of North Carolina, all things college access. And I hope you know how to leverage the expertise available from the people who work with CFNC.org. And those are your regional representatives. Several of them on the call today. So if you've got any questions about how to reach somebody in person to talk to you about college access, put that in the chat, because people are here who definitely are the experts. So you can ask all the questions you might have about CFNC. Like I said, we do have people on the call. But the session today is more about the FAFSA tools and not so much about CFNC proper. You might have been at the session yesterday, which is recorded and will be available soon on the website. That session was about the CFNC professional tools that you have available to you and about getting the more general setup you might need for your students. So, and I also want to mention another important organization represented on our call today, and that is My Future NC. So Chris Charbonneau is going to be speaking in a few minutes. My Future NC sponsors the North Carolina First in FAFSA Collaborative, provides that publicly available tracker, the comparison that you can go on, use some terrific filters, and you can find out a lot about your school's FAFSA completion rate. My Future also sponsors the challenge, and so Chris will tell us about that in just a minute. So SEAA is, again, where I work, and my colleague, Nicole Nickerson, is on the call. So there are three of us presenting today. Two of us from SEAA, and thank goodness we have Chris Charbonneau from My Future as well. Are y'all ready? I don't see any questions. I'm assuming everyone can hear. Audio's working. Screens. Okay, here we go. I'd help to start with what is the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. You would start at studentaid.gov. You can see there you'd start at Apply for Aid, which takes you to the FAFSA. So there are a lot of resources, and we'll mention a few where you can go to get help with the FAFSA, because again, today is not really about the FAFSA proper. It's about the tools that we hope education professionals can use for their students and to help with their monitoring and tracking their students' progress and completion. So CFNC.org, Pay for College, there's a lot there about the FAFSA, about financial aid more broadly, scholarships, grants, state grants, private scholarships, it's all there. So that would be a good place to go. Studentaid.gov itself has excellent graphics and succinct one-pagers about the FAFSA. Who is my parent? Am I a dependent or an independent student? So all of those questions, great stuff on studentaid.gov, a lot of it in Spanish as well. And then CFNC.org has an entire section of paying for college. So please use all that. And again, today is more about the tools. So it's important, though, to know why we're all here and why it all matters so much. You know, the FAFSA matters a lot. It's an application. It's the free application for federal student aid. And without it, students aren't considered for the significant funding that the federal government provides, so the Pell. North Carolina also uses the FAFSA. It's a federal form. North Carolina uses it as well. And with it, and without filling out any other application, students can be considered for the state's aid. For students who are going to community college, North Carolina private institutions, the UNCs, all of these sectors have a state grant, and a student fills out the FAFSA and is considered. So FAFSA is important. So in the last few years, I hope you've heard a little bit about the state's attention to educational attainment. There is an increased urgency for educational attainment. We have a need for talent. 2/3 of our jobs require education after high school, and not enough North Carolinians have the education that we need, that the state needs. So you can see here, based on the projections, the number of 1.4 million adults who would have a high quality degree or credential. We want that to be 2 million North Carolinians with a high quality degree or credential. So we're short. We're not headed to the right goal for what our state needs. And a lot of this starts with the FAFSA. And thank you for coming and paying attention in this webinar and helping us help the students. So it's important work. All right, so our agenda today is first the challenge, the first in FAFSA challenge, and then the tracker, and finish the FAFSA. So the challenge and the tracker are offered through the collaborative led by My Future NC. Finish the FAFSA is administered by our state agency. They'll work together to help you help your students with FAFSA completion. So I'm going to pause for a minute, and we're going to switch presenters real quick. I'd like to introduce you to Chris Charbonneau, and I will let her further explain herself and anything that she'd like to say about My Future NC, and then take it away, Chris, and I'll advance the slides for you.
Hi, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much, Catherine, for hosting this morning's event. My name is Chris Charbonneau. I am the Director of Advocacy and Engagement for My Future NC. I have probably communicated with a lot of you over the last year as we have lifted up First in FAFSA, which is the statewide initiative to really help and support students and families in completing the FAFSA. As many of you know, those powerful suite of tools that we'll also be talking with you about today does really begin with really creating that greater overall awareness. And how we're able to create overall awareness is through the generous support of one of our funders, John and Belk Endowment, who has allowed us to really fund the kinds of activities, the events, and the tracker tools and challenge that I'll talk about next. If you want to go ahead and go to the next slide. As many of you know, our focus has really been on lifting FAFSA completion rates. We embarked on a pretty ambitious goal as we brought teams and leaders together to really determine how are we going to achieve our statewide educational attainment goal of 2 million by 2030. Finishing the FAFSA and those FAFSA completion rates was an important key performance indicator for us to see not only were students applying and enrolling, but also with affordability. That was a really incredible opportunity for us to lift up that awareness. You'll notice here, and I wanted to say an important thank you for all of you, your commitment, your dedication. It has not been an easy couple of years for our class of 2020 and our class of 2021. And it's your important contributions, your dedication and commitment to really serving our students and reaching out to our families in ways that, multiple ways. It takes a lion's share of your time, and we are very thankful for you. This year, based on September 3rd data, we completed this FAFSA year with 61% of our students across the state completing the FAFSA. I know many of you really worked hard in looking at your own FAFSA completion rates and working towards building different kinds of activities and innovation practices. So many of you are also waiting for who won the FAFSA challenge. This year we had 77% of our North Carolina public high schools register for the challenge, which was really exciting. 100% of our 115 school districts, public school districts, registered at least one high school, and 69% of those public school districts have all had high schools in their districts registered. So we are so thankful for you. The final FAFSA completion rates We are anticipating that that will be available, which means the denominator that helps us determine who those FAFSA Challenge winners were. We are just awaiting NCDPI to release the state's final high school graduation counts, and then we will do the tabulations, and we are hoping to lift up those final 2021 FAFSA Challenge completion winners in the later fall timeframe. But I wanted to share some really exciting news with you. If you want to shift to the next slide. Ta-da! We also had a different challenge, which was our innovation grant winners. Those were different schools that had applied to really lift up those innovative practices that were student and family centered. Data-driven was already showing both quantitative and qualitative results. Really a collective impact within their communities and drawing upon those community partners, as well as from an equity focus and ensuring that students and families have the support they need. And they sought out partners to be able to do that. We want to lift up Statesville High School in the Iredell-Statesville District, Pearson High School with Pearson County Schools, South Granville High School with Granville County Schools, Mountain Heritage High School with Yancey County Schools, and North Lenoir High School with Lenoir County Public Schools. We are just excited to be lifting you up today. In fact, those 174 of you that are on the call today are the first to hear. We will be sending out a lot of communication over the course of the next couple of weeks in hopes that being able to lift up the practices and the hard work and results of our counselors and our school communities to help support students and families will also be generating greater awareness during the time where we launch Countdown to College, and then specifically some of the FAFSA Day activities and events that are there to support all of the three very important things that occur during the Countdown to College month. And then I wanted to just draw attention before we go into the other two important tools. As we lift up greater incentives to support the challenge, each of our innovation grant winners are winning $500 to support the needs that they have within their schools to generate even greater college awareness programming, events, and just support of students and families. And as we do that, we will also be lifting up our First in FAFSA site. You'll see a little bit of a site refresh. If you want to go ahead and go out there today as we talk about the tracker, the challenge, and you want to learn more, as well as resources to support some of your efforts within your schools, firstinfafsa.com is a great place where we are hosting many of those kinds of tools to help support our practitioners primarily. You'll also find that there is an opportunity on that site to subscribe to receive a bi-monthly newsletter. We'll be highlighting resources, innovative practices, as well as the leaderboard and driving people back in to learn more about what's going on within the tracker. We also have additional resources and tools that many of you as counselors, our College Advising Corps, Gear Up, really helped to support the creation of last year. Some of our most downloaded tools were our Mythbusters around FAFSA, an FAQ, a parent guide. We know that oftentimes many of our counselors just don't have time to create all of these resources, so we wanted to give and help support with a baseline of tools that you can localize to your own context of your school, as well as social media toolkits. We know that there are a lot of folks that are having to manage an Instagram. Some people are doing TikToks, others are Twitter, Facebook. We wanted to make sure that there was at least a baseline set of resources in addition to the ones that Countdown to College is doing that is very specific to FAFSA so that you can encourage those FAFSA activities. And then finally, anytime that we have different learning opportunities that come up, we are also acting as yet another group that's helping to lift up those events and activities to support the work that you all have on the ground. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand back to Catherine and make sure that you are going back out on October 1st to see some of the tools that are out there. And then Catherine will go ahead and talk through what those kinds of differences will make.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So I would encourage you to put your questions in the chat. Well, Chris is here. I'll be presenting, so she's free to answer some of the questions if you have them about the challenge. it's new to North Carolina, so you are not alone with the questions that you inevitably have. So please throw them in there. Got a few slides about the tracker. So the FAFSA Tracker, which is also the first in FAFSA collaborative tool. And we can talk a little bit about that. We want you to see it side by side with Finish the FAFSA, which you may be more familiar with from it's been around for a little longer than the tracker. But we want you to see how they can complement each other and how different professionals in different roles might need one or the other. So I'll pause after these few slides on the tracker and just make sure we've answered questions, because then we'll talk about Finish the FAFSA, which is that password protected report in CFNC. And at the end, then we'll kind of lay them out and say, okay, how can you make these work together? What does the data look like? And all those other tricky questions. So the tracker is firstinfafsa.com. It's publicly available, so anyone can look at this data. We're going to talk at the end about where the data comes from. Essentially, it comes from publicly available data about the senior class and publicly available federal data about FAFSA filers in North Carolina. You can use it to understand your school's progress and perhaps compare yourself to other schools in the district or other schools similar to yours. It's easy to filter, so you can see on the screen how you can filter by county, by school type, by class size. You can look at performance across districts in different ways, a bar chart, a little more of a deep dive into individual schools. So I would encourage you to take a look. This is a product of the My Future NC Collaborative. One of the key partners is Carolina Demography. With their expertise in Tableau and data, this has become a really sophisticated yet easy to use tool. The data is displayed publicly through Tableau, and it's matched with some of the county profile demographic data that's created by Carolina Demography and My Future NC. It's updated each week on Tuesdays. So you are going to want to wait for the FAFSA that opens on October the 1st. It will not be that first Tuesday afterwards, but at least the following, if not the 19th. That's the target when you would really have some information there, some substantive information to see by Tuesday, October the 19th. So that timeline is important. Well, later when we talk about reasons why the data is tricky, it has in part to do with the fact that there's a different timeline for the release of the data. The federal government releases filer data in the aggregate, of course, each week for a week prior. And so that happens at the end of the week. Carolina Demography and My Future are able to package that and present it to you in the tracker by the following Tuesday. Anyway, target October the 19th as your first chance to see some substance data. But go check it out. In the meantime, we know that it will be a couple weeks into October before there's some good information for you to see. All right, more screens from information you find on the tracker. So the one on the left says, what percentage of seniors at each North Carolina high school have completed the FAFSA? And the one on the right shows the FAFSA completion rate by school district. So some really exciting information. I wanted to talk for a minute here about what these terms mean. So the percentage of seniors who have completed the FAFSA at a school make up that school's FAFSA completion rate. So this is the percentage or a rate that you calculate by dividing the number of your school's senior FAFSA filers by the count of seniors in the class, graduating seniors in your class. So in a minute, I will show you yet another screen from the tracker that has an example of a school. So a specific school rather than the comparison that you see here. And we'll talk a little bit more about the completion rate. So Chris mentioned the word denominator a little bit ago, and it does help to think of it as a fraction. You think of the numerator is the number of FAFSA filers out of your senior class. The denominator is the total number of seniors. I mean, wouldn't it be great if you had 100 seniors and 100 people filled out the 100 seniors filled out the FAFSA? But more likely you have 100 seniors and 90% of them, or 80% or 70% or 60% have filled out the FAFSA. So that numerator is the number of FAFSA filers, the denominator, the total number of seniors. Where these two figures come from obviously impacts the way the rate appears to you. So we'll talk more about that at the end. For those of you who are a little more savvy about the tracker and Finish the FAFSA, you know it gets tricky to compare these two tools and the data that they show. So we're hoping at the end of our presentation today to to clarify a few things for you. We may not be able to satisfy all of the data questions, but we do have some answers. So here's a detailed information screen, again, from the tracker. This is a screen. So if you go to the First in FAFSA website and you see the FAFSA Tracker, then you would see those screens I showed you just a minute ago that were more, that facilitate comparisons. And you can also see detailed information about your individual high school. So you can see the pie chart that shows the completion rate. 52% of the seniors have completed the FAFSA at this time. But I'd encourage you to look over on the right where it says submitted and completed, and then the senior class size. There are a couple of things we could tease out of here. So you can see that 36, look at the completed, 36 students out of a senior class size of 69 have completed the FAFSA. So again, that numerator is the 36, the denominator is the 69, 52% of the seniors have completed the FAFSA at this time. So that's how that rate works. The other thing to look at up above completed is another important statistic, and that is submitted. So what happens in the FAFSA is students will submit it, but it's not complete. We can talk a little bit more in a minute about why that is, but it's an important gap for us to attend to. Finish the FAFSA can help. So when we get to that tool, you can see, okay, I find out here that I'm missing 3 seniors. Right? 39 seniors have submitted a FAFSA, but only 36 seniors have completed a FAFSA. Who are those 3 seniors and how can I help them? We'll get to finish the FAFSA because that's how you can help them. So, but before I leave the screen, I did want to say that submitted versus completed is an important target. When you're working directly with seniors, it would be low-hanging fruit potentially to target the seniors who have done quite a bit of work and perhaps even thinks that they have completed the FAFSA when in fact the FAFSA is not being considered because it's not complete. So we would encourage you to see how the tracker could lead you to finish the FAFSA so that you could move the needle by working with specific students. So here are the 3 FAFSA tools, the 3 FAFSA events in North Carolina. Chris started us out with the challenge. I talked a little bit about the tracker, showed you some of those screens, how you can compare, you can filter. That's publicly available data that your leadership could look at, the community can look at, anyone can look at. Finish the FAFSA is a password protected, a secure report for professionals who work directly with seniors. You know, you see the submission versus completed, you see that gap, you want to move the needle. Who are you missing? Or maybe you see that you want to find out who hasn't even started. How do you identify those students and what can you do then when you know who they are? So I'm going to pause for a minute and I'll take a look at questions. Or if one of my colleagues wants to speak up, if there's anything that we should address before we go in to finish the FAFSA, we can do that. So I do see a question about data, and it's a big one. I mean, it's a big one. We you know, everyone wants us to pay attention to the data, and then we need to ask questions about it when it doesn't make sense. So I would encourage you to hang on a little bit. We have a few slides at the end specifically about the data, about where does it come from for the tracker, where does it come from for Finish the FAFSA, and why don't they always match perfectly, because they don't. So if you can hang on there, those of you who are on the call, if you want to go ahead and answer, that will help. You can go ahead and answer if it suits you via the chat, but I know we'll want to talk about it at the end as well. So that's an important question. So I'm about to pivot to Finish the FAFSA, and I'm going to introduce my colleague, Nicole Nickerson, who, like me, works at SCAA, our state agency. And she is our College Access and FAFSA Outreach Manager. So going to be very closely tied to Finish the FAFSA. It's a great tool. And Nicole, I will forward the slides for you as you are ready, and go ahead and take it away.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Good morning, everyone. So I am the person who you will be reaching out to gain access for Finish the FAFSA. And so I want to preface this entire thing by saying we've been having issues with our inbox, and I've had to delete almost 6,000 emails with some issues. So if you are a counselor that works with 12th graders completing the FAFSA and you've emailed the outreach email, if you could please do that again for me, that would be amazing. And if you are a college advisor, regardless of your school, your information should be given to your director, who will then, forward that information to me. So all the questions about access, and maybe you emailed our outreach email, I'm sorry, but we're going to get to it, okay? So the first thing I want to say is access to finish the FAFSA is governed by a number of agreements. And so when I say, or if I email you and I ask, hey, do you work with, directly work with seniors completing the FAFSA? That's why I'm asking. We have a lot of agreements, we have a lot of attorneys, and of course we want to ensure that all of our students' information is protected. And so with that being said, it's also important to note that, as always, you all who are gaining access to finish the FAFSA are obligated to abide by privacy and data security policies. Thank you. And so this is the information that is available and is not available. So when you gain access to finish the FAFSA, you will not be able to see their income or social security numbers, okay, which is wonderful. What you will be able to see, however, status of the FAFSA submission versus completion, and Catherine did a wonderful job describing the difference in the two. If there's an error and potentially what the error code is, and if they were selected for verification or not. All of those are really important, especially, as we see October 1st coming up quickly, but then even more importantly, as March 1st comes very quickly for us once the fall is over. This is going to be amazing for you all working with seniors. So only use the database for approved program purposes. So again, I don't want to be too rigid about this, but we do have rules and regulations, as we always do with our attorneys and agreements. So these Finish the FAFSA is specifically for people who are working directly with seniors completing the FAFSA, okay? And so when thinking about sharing the information, of course, you may not share this information with anyone, and that's always, right? If we're working in education, we are not supposed to be sharing information with anyone. However, if the student is younger than 18, of course, you can share the information with that student, parents, or persons designated by the parent. And I know you all have that information within your schools. If the student is older than 18, you can share the information with the student or persons designated by that student, okay? And the last thing is, if required, to disclose by law. So we all know that there are special circumstances, but here are just some general ideas of who you can and cannot share this information with. So Finish the FAFSA is a report in the CFNC Pro Center. And so here is a screenshot of where you will see it. If you look on your right, top right, you'll be able to see Finish the FAFSA once you gain access to it. With that being said, I do want to mention that once I get your information and I put in the work order, it does take some time. And I would like to say 7 to 10 business days to gain access, especially during the fall. We know the fall is extremely busy for us, but once you do gain access, you won't receive an email or anything like that. You'll just be able to pull it up in your CFNC Pro Tools Center. Again, it's on the top right, and you'll see Finish the FAFSA Data there. Prior to gaining access to Finish the FAFSA, you do need to establish a CFNC account first. An additional permission to view the Finish the FAFSA report is governed by an agreement with SEAA and the federal government. Access can also be granted to professionals who work one-on-one with seniors on FAFSA completion and college access, as I've already stated. Thank you. So, I'm sorry, y'all. So not submitted, submitted, and completed. And this is what it'll look like when you're able to see your students at your specific school. And of course, the student names are redacted on this screenshot, but you're very easily able to see students who have not submitted it, which means that they have started it, but they haven't pressed, submit, or excuse me, means that the students have not submitted the FAFSA. Submitted means that the student has submitted it, but there's a problem. So usually that's with the signature page at the end. And so that's important. However, it's important as well because if it's not submitted, or if it's not completed rather, the FAFSA will not be considered for financial aid. So we've got to make sure that we get students to complete it, which means that everything is done, including the signature page, and they will be considered for federal aid. Catherine mentioned this as well, and those of you who have had access to Finish the FAFSA know this already, but Finish the FAFSA can help you with specific seniors. So who is it that you need to pull in the hallway? Where do you need to go for third period lunch? How can you contact, depending on their age, their parents for their information, or them for the information that is needed? A lot of times our students get extremely frustrated when there are errors. So they've done all that they can do. They've given you all of this information. They've kind of, worked with their parents who may or may not be hesitant about giving the information, and there's an error, or they have been selected for verification. So this is how the Finish the FAFSA can help you all working with these seniors, but also can help you, because I'm sure it's frustrating for you all. Finish the FAFSA, or FAFSA, excuse me, is not a short process by any means. And so when there is a problem, if there is a problem, we want you all to have access to figure out what that problem may be, if they haven't completed it because of a signature page, or if there are any errors, or if they've simply been selected for verification. The hope is that this will give you all some ease to be able to explain what's going on and move as swiftly through the process as possible. FAFSA can be a bit daunting to many of us, so this certainly is supposed to help you and the students. So the federal government requires verification of selected FAFSAs. The Post-Secondary Institution Financial Aid Office is charged with collecting the documents from the student to verify the financial information provided on the FAFSA. We see a lot of times that there are errors, intentional or not, it doesn't matter. There are errors that occur. And so, of course, the federal government is just wanting to turn around and check what the error is, and just to clarify anything that may be a bit different, or something that doesn't seem quite right. I'm not sure if you all use this or how often you use it, but using the IRS data retrieval tool with a student or family to complete the FAFSA reduces the likelihood of being selected for verification. So in working with college advisors in the past, sometimes this works well, sometimes it doesn't, but certainly something that I would encourage you all to try, because if you're just pulling straight from the federal government, that will absolutely eliminate some issues that could occur with errors in potentially finances, or just even transposing a few numbers in your Social Security number. In 2001, as a COVID accommodation, federal student aid directed campuses to halt verification processes for the 21 and 22 FAFSA. So that's just a quick note for you all. And before we go on, I apologize for this. I should mention in the error column, as you can see in this slide, there is a code that appears for a student. If you hover over a code, it will tell you the type of error that it is, along with instructions to help you out with that. And finally, you are able to download Finish the FAFSA to Excel by student, by FAFSA submission, completion, by error, by verification. And of course, if you choose to download it, we ask that it's protected. If you choose to print it, we ask that it is shredded appropriately and discarded appropriately to protect all student data. Again, please remember privacy and security obligations. If you're downloading these files, they must be stored securely. A lot of you all, because you work for schools or college advising corps, you are given computers that are already protected by your institutions. But so I would suggest not downloading this on your personal computer, of course. And again, please don't leave printed copies left in open spaces or visible for others, as we always want to protect student data. And I think that's it for me. Let's see if there are any questions.
Thank you so much, Nicole. I did put a note in the chat to explain the timing. I should have thought that we would need to say this up front. It didn't occur to me, but there's nothing in Finish the FAFSA right now. So
Right.
in September, you don't see anything yet. So I think a couple people asked about that. But the seniors aren't downloaded yet. And of course, the FAFSA hasn't opened. So very
Absolutely.
soon.
Absolutely. October 1st will be here before we know it, and you'll have
Mm-hmm.
information as students begin to complete their FAFSAs. And I think I saw a question about if I am a counselor and I move schools, you will need to request access again for that school, just to, give clarification for that.
Right. We have traditionally handled those requests via email, which is
Mhm.
still a viable option. But on the handout, which is in the GoToWebinar handout section, there's a little one-pager on Finish the FAFSA Access. Like Nicole said, you need a CFNC account first, and then Finish the FAFSA is an additional permission level beyond that. And there's a link in there that'll be a little more efficient for all concerned than email. So if you want to grab that handout, make sure you have your CFNC account, and then you can click on the link about requesting specifically Finish the FAFSA. But if all else fails, outreach at ncfcaa.edu.
Thank you, Catherine.
Yeah. Do you have anything else you wanted to, if you see any questions or anything else about access that you wanted to address, Nicole?
I don't, but I would like to reiterate, if you are a college advisor at any of the partner universities, please give your information. They have a spreadsheet that I emailed them. Please give your information to your director and not email or use the smart sheet that Catherine mentioned. However,
Right.
if you are a counselor working directly with students, 12th graders completing the FAFSA, please email the outreach and use the smart sheet that Catherine spoke about.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Again, that was Nicole Nickerson, and we're so delighted that she's at FCAA, has been for a couple of months. So we're very grateful to have her expertise and her college advisor experience with us. So we will be working together to get it all done for you. So thank you. And I too appreciate your patience this time of year. So we will work through all the access and other questions as fast as we can. So I will pause for a second. We're going to talk about data, but before I do, I will turn on my camera and say hello again. And also just pause and take a quick glance at the questions. I think we covered Finish the FAFSA. But by all means, team, let me know if you see anything that is keeping people from profiting from the rest of the session, if you see anything there. And those of you in the audience, keep those questions coming. We do have the right group of people gathered here today, so I want to make sure we take advantage of all this expertise. So back to the question that was asked earlier about the completion rate. So we're going to talk about that. Where does the number of seniors come from? So that's an important question for Finish the FAFSA, because sometimes counselors, professionals will go in and look and they'll say, well, but senior so-and-so is not listed here. I mean, I see most of my seniors. I see, 99 out of 100. Where's the other one? Sometimes in the tracker, you'll see a count for your senior class, and it doesn't, I mean, it's obviously very close, but it doesn't seem exactly right. So where does that data come from? That's important. It's also the denominator, so it impacts the rate. So that's one question, is where does the number and the list of seniors come from? Another question is, for Finish the FAFSA, you see the senior listed there, but they did the FAFSA. Maybe they showed you the SAR, the aid report. They did the FAFSA, but yet it says not submitted. So why is that? We can talk about that. Don't have quick and easy answers on how to fix it, but I can at least explain how it happens. And there are some ways we try to diagnose. The tracker, like I said, the data comes via a different route. So we'll try to address that so that at least you understand these parallel streams of data for the same, trying to quantify the same things. And then, they don't always match exactly. Finish the FAFSA might have, 362 seniors, and the tracker says that you have 360. So how does that happen? The answers to this mainly relate to the data sources, which I've said a couple of times, and the timing of when the data updates. So we'll try to address that. Hopefully it's not too in the weeds for you, so hang in there. If you're brand new to Finish the FAFSA or the tracker, you know, kind of step back and listen, but don't sweat it. Those of you who've been doing Finish the FAFSA, you might have questions about the data. It's worth it to try to dig in and engage a little bit. Before I advance, I wanted to say that Finish the FAFSA, the CFNC secure report, isn't really designed for a completion rate. It's not designed really for a comparison. It's really designed to give a list of seniors information so that you can work with individuals. It's more about working one-on-one with students. You could, though, download to Excel, subtract students who have withdrawn, add students who have since entered your school, enrolled at your school, and do your own tally. And you could do that with your Excel spreadsheet particularly, but Finish the FAFSA is not the tracker. So, you know, the tracker is more suited for that comparison and that rate. It's just set up that way. Okay, so where does Finish the FAFSA data come from? So Finish the FAFSA, the password protected report inside CFNC. So we're talking about the list of seniors. You see their names, you know, you see the full first name, last name. So we are getting senior names from the Department of Public Instruction in September, right about now. So actual senior names, a list of seniors by high school downloaded securely to the report. We do that again at the end of January, trying to time it so that it's helpful right after, you know, the semester ends. And so it's updated. So you can imagine that you have students coming and going in October and November or in February and March. And Finish the FAFSA is not that nimble. It doesn't update in real time. And there are a couple reasons for that, but it's for the foreseeable future isn't going to change. So, you know, we get you situated with Finish the FAFSA. You know, maybe there's some ways we could improve it for you, but I feel like we just need to say, honestly, you're going to have your seniors in September and January. I do have a couple of suggestions when you don't see a senior or they don't match, so hang in there. So that's where we get the senior names, the denominator. The Department of Ed, the federal government, sends individual FAFSA filer data to us. As a state agency administering state aid, we have to have the FAFSA information to know who to offer the aid to. As a result, we have this FAFSA filer data, we have the security protocols, we have a way to display it for you. So we get that from the Department of Ed. We match. So we match the DPI state senior names with the federal FAFSA filer data, and voila, we present that to you and Finish the FAFSA. But like a lot of matching processes, it's not perfect. So we aren't matching on social security number. DPI doesn't use a social security number for their students. So we're matching on first name, last name, and date of birth. So you can imagine that students have a typo in their date of birth in one place or another. So they're, you know, they fat finger the date of birth. Or they have a hyphenated name that they use in one place, and then in the other place they use just one of the names. There are all kinds of different things that happen there. And so the senior name is sitting there with not submitted, and you know they have done the FAFSA. So we can diagnose a little bit of that. And again, I'll be honest, Nicole and I do not have a huge team for the research. So we would encourage you to ask the student to show you the SAR, the student aid report, which they would get after filling out the FAFSA. It will come via email, assuming they gave an email address, which probably most of them did when they filled out the FAFSA. So that's a very useful tool. You can see right away if the student name is somehow different from your records. We even have students who will fill out the wrong FAFSA. So keeping in mind that the FAFSA for your seniors who graduated in May is still out there. So if they start college, they never did the FAFSA, or they were going to start spring, they can still fill it out. So your current seniors need to make sure they fill out the 22, 23 FAFSA because they're going to school in the fall of 22. So, you know, every year there are a few seniors who fill out the wrong year FAFSA. They don't show up and finish the FAFSA because it's a different year. It's a useful thing to know because you'd want to go back and have them correct that because they want to be considered for aid in their actual college going year. You'll find that out if you ask to see their SAR. Students, again, get that SAR, the student aid report, shows all the information they supplied on the FAFSA, and it comes via a link in their email. They can also log in to their FAFSA account and see their SAR. So if you download the handouts from this session, it includes the PowerPoint that we're using, and in the speaker notes are some links if it would be helpful. But it's also easy to go to studentaid.gov, and they've got a search tool because that's where there's information about the SAR. So that's kind of your go-to when the student doesn't match. You can email outreach and say, I have a student, I really need to know. But if you can find out the FAFSA completion information through the SAR, that's probably faster than us researching individual students at the state level, because we're not fast at that. But we will try, especially if you've got a tangle with several students. But knowing that the student has done it when you see the SAR, that's the same information that you would have gotten out of finished FAFSA. And happily, it doesn't happen very often. You know, 98% of your students are going to be there and they're going to match. So finish the FAFSA is there for you. I think that's the basic question on finish the FAFSA. Next, I've got a similar slide. I'm going to switch. It looks a little similar, but it's about the tracker. So the same question, where does the senior class number come from? It comes from NCDPI, but it's publicly available information, and it's just the number of seniors. It comes from a slightly different way. Instead of a list of seniors at a point in time, it comes from the principal's monthly report for month 2 from NCDPI. So the tracker data is taking that monthly report for month 2. Well, that's not the exact same moment in time. There's every reason to understand why it might not be exactly the same. You know how your enrollment is sort of a constantly moving target. It's going to be very, very similar, the number of seniors the tracker says versus what Finish the FAFSA lists, but it might not be exactly the same. So Finish the FAFSA is getting a list of seniors at a point in time. The tracker's getting the principal monthly report for month 2, locking that in for your number of seniors. I will say, cooperative and innovative high schools, your stuff is different. You guys have a different kind of senior class, and I didn't really prepare slides specifically about that. I'm grateful that my teacher's done a lot of work with the CIHS and helping them get the right information for their senior classes. So I won't go into that in detail here today, but we hear you and we know you have unique senior class situations. So this is tracker data, publicly available, principal monthly report for the seniors. And then now the Department of Ed is publicly make available aggregate information about FAFSA completion. So that was true a year ago, 5 years ago, that was always true. I used to recommend it to counselors and others, education leaders. It's a little hard to use. It is nothing like the friendly filters of the First and FAFSA Tracker. But the tracker is getting that information from the Department of Ed. So they publish the number of FAFSA submissions and completions per school, per North Carolina high school. Couple of qualifiers. They don't publish anything if there are fewer than 5 FAFSA filers. So if you're at a small school, you have 1 FAFSA filer, 2 FAFSA filers, they're not going to show up in the tracker. They'll show up and finish the FAFSA, but they will not show up in the tracker because the federal data publicly only reports more than 5. And it identifies FAFSA filers as seniors through a couple of criteria. There's no question that says, are you a senior, yes or no, on the FAFSA. So the tracker, getting this information from the Department of Ed, who is making some assumptions. You've not ever been in college, you are between certain ages. If you're a student, your high seniors are older, or like older than 20, or if they inadvertently say, well, yes, I've been in college, or maybe they are thinking of their own situation and say, yes, I've been in college, then the federal government's not going to see them as a senior and is not going to count them as a high school senior. So there's more information about this in a couple of places if you're just really wanting to iron out this question of numbers. The feds and studentaid.gov, they talk about why seniors might not appear like they're seniors, and the tracker's FAQ also has information about why this data might not match what you think for your seniors. Last, I'll say the timing. Remember the tracker, we talked about it updates weekly. So Tuesday after the Friday that the feds report from the week before. So, it can take a minute for the data to be there. So Finish the FAFSA updates every business day. So you're going to see it there quicker, and there'll be a lag time then before it's reported in the tracker. Complications. So the First and FAFSA Tracker is taking the principal monthly report seniors for the denominator, taking the Fed's FAFSA filer data through their algorithm of identifying seniors. They're taking that for the numerator, and they are displaying a rate that they will offer you for your schools. I hope I haven't focused too much on the problems of the data, because really it works pretty well. So I'm going to pause for a minute, because that's all I had to say about data. But do not go, because we have resources and we have FAFSA Day information, and you will want to see that. Just a couple more slides, and you know, maybe another 10 or 15 minutes, depending on our questions. So hang in there, and let me take a peek at the question. Or if one of my co-presenters wants to speak up, if you've seen something you know would be helpful for the general good, please go ahead.
Catherine, we've gotten a few questions about how Finish the FAFSA works with early college and with the fifth-year students, about the data.
For the, right? So
yeah, go ahead.
Well, I don't know if this will help, but I was going to start by saying that Finish the FAFSA is designed to help the staff help the seniors. So anybody who's a senior, so if you're at a cooperative and innovative high school, for example, anybody who's potentially a senior, the Finish the FAFSA is not interested in the rate. They're interested in showing you any senior who might be filling out a FAFSA and you want to help them. So you should see all the seniors. Do you think that speaks to the question? The tracker is a little different in that it is trying to show a rate, and it can be complicated if you have 12th and 13th grades and you aren't, all of them aren't going to be graduating, and we're trying to calculate a rate. Now that's tricky for the tracker. It doesn't matter as much in Finish the FAFSA, because the goal is just to help them complete, and you know who's going to graduate and who needs to be doing that FAFSA, and you can go after them based on what you see in Finish the FAFSA.
Have you come up with any tips or anything yet to help some of those folks with the data if they've got that mix between 12th and 13th graders? Someone's just asking if there's any tips so that you can just see your graduating students.
So I would argue that in Finish the FAFSA, again, it doesn't matter. If you wanted to download Finish the FAFSA to Excel, you could sort it and delete out your students that aren't graduating. But as far as the tracker goes, that's a big question. Maybe, I don't know if Chris, you want to weigh in. I could take a stab at it, but you probably would say it better about some of the tips for those schools and the tracker data. So I do know that there were a lot of conversations about the 12th and 13th graders. Yeah, there you are. Chris is there now, I think.
Hi everyone. Sorry about that. Clearly, I got caught in a multitask of trying to answer another question. So while I was answering somebody else's question, I missed the question that you had specifically asked, but it sounded like it was for grade 12 and grade 13, some of these super seniors.
Right.
Yeah,
just any tips for doing the best they can with the way that data appears.
Yeah, so this year we obviously, as we lifted up the tracker this year, one of the snags that we found was just how reporting of both our grade 12 and our grade 13. As we lift up the tracker in October 1st of this year, you will begin to see data flow through. As you all know, some of the data that does come in, there is a lag time of when that completion data does flow through to us. The first opportunity that we will be lifting up that data in the October timeframe, we are targeting for October 19th, and that will be inclusive of the first week and a half of data that flows through. At that time, for at least this first October through December 31st, before we have what we both mentioned earlier, that denominator data, this will just be those completion numbers. One of the things that we have added as feedback from folks is a tool to the site that will allow you to place your own denominator in there so that you can begin to see what those FAFSA completion rates look like on a public basis as well. And certainly something, as we've talked about, more of kind of accurate data is within Finish the FAFSA because of the timeliness of that data that's updated. As we look at those super seniors, right now with that, the tracker does include the total number of seniors from both grade 12 and the grade except if the lead counselor indicated last year the use of grade 12 or grade 13. We are still in the outreach efforts of understanding how to better support our cooperative innovative high schools, simply because that particular population within those schools are a little bit more tricky to be able to track. I'm going to go ahead
keep going.
I'm just going to go ahead and place in the chat line more information about the tracker, just so folks have an understanding of some of the frequently asked questions. For the most part, the tracker will remain as it has been since this last data year, and I think it'll help to support some of the questions that are also coming up in the chat.
Awesome. Yes, you have some excellent FAQ on the tracker that will really help. Is, if you're brand new to this venture, then by all means check out this FAQ. And even if you had looked at it, in previous months last year, you now may know enough to go and ask those questions, and they've got a lot of them set out for you in the FAQ on the tracker. So again, trying to make sure that there's a way to display the percentage or the rate in a logical, reliable way on the tracker. For finished FAFSA, not so much about the rate. We just want to supply you with information about your actual seniors. So slightly different targets or goals for these two tools, but it is frustrating when you don't quite understand the numbers behind them. So hopefully we've helped a little bit. We can still ask and answer some questions. However, I wanted to go ahead. We have two more slides. One of them is FAFSA Day. We are hoping that you will offer FAFSA DriveIns. We were hoping that you will offer your students the chance to attend some of these drive-in events. And I've got some links for you to offer your students about this information. More information on CFNC.org in coming weeks. But you can see we've already got quite a selection of institutions across the state who are going to sponsor a FAFSA Day drive-in event on their campus on one day, just one Saturday, October the 23rd. Keep your eyes and ears open, because there are other FAFSA events through the month. A lot of our North Carolina institutions have well-established FAFSA outreach efforts on Tuesdays or other Saturdays, or in other ways, virtual, in person, all of it. So there's lots going on, but there'll be a high point on Saturday, October the 23rd. There may be other institutions. The deadline for the institutions to commit is the end of September. So by the end of September, by the early part of October, we'll have a final list of institutions where your students can register. So I will give you the link where they can register to attend. And the caveat is we only have these institutions listed there. So they can't register for an institution that hasn't committed to attend yet. So I'm a little reluctant. It's the same link, but I would hate for a student to go and say, well, there's nobody near me, or not the one I was hoping to see. So you can encourage them to check back. You can maybe wait a couple of weeks before you encourage them to sign on. In other information about FAFSA Day, we will be communicating with you directly, some social media posts and so forth that you might want to use to publicize it. So that's coming out real soon. Could I ask a favor of my CFNC colleagues? Could you put out the links where you sign up for text? I think that's super helpful to get them connected if they haven't already. So you, as a counselor, as a professional, can sign up for text information about Countdown to College, which will include FAFSA Day. You can also promote to your students a link for them to sign up to receive text. It's not too much texting, it's just the right amount, and I bet that will be in the chat here shortly. And you can then publicize that as a way to just sort of keep up, so that if you don't take it in now, you don't absorb it quite yet, or you're not quite ready, you'll get timely information just at in the right point of time. I'll pause for a minute and see if any of my colleagues want to chime in on FAFSA Day. Nicole or Chris. or CFNC.
Hey, Catherine, it's Michelle.
Yes.
There is a question in the chat or the question box asking if we could resend out the information for the FAFSA drive-ins.
To the counselors?
Yes.
Okay. We did send one email. It was just last week. And it did not have a lot about the drive-ins yet. So we can resend that, but you can get more information about the drive-ins in the next couple of weeks. You really haven't missed anything just yet on the drive-ins for you counselors. We've been working with our institutions, making sure they're clear on what they might want to offer. You know, we had back in the spring, you may remember, for those of you who are working on college access back in February, March, we were having drive-ins in the midst of the pandemic. And at that time we thought, oh, in October, as with many events around the state, we thought, oh, it'll be just normal again. And in some places it is more normal, but we're glad that we can still offer a safe and secure event. Drive-ins again, it is, and worked well in April, and it'll work well again. But we've been working with these institutions to get them to sign on. We'll be, in the next few days, turning our attention to you, the counselors, to get you the information that you need about how you can communicate this to your students. But for now, please know that it's Saturday, October the 23rd, and I will go get a link for you to there we go. Thank you, April. That's for the text, which is probably the most direct way to make sure that you're getting information. So that's the one for counselors, right, April?
Yes, that's for counselors and educators. Yep.
Counselors and educators. So there's the direction so that you can be connected. You know, just won't blow up your inbox. So it's just a quick and easy way to connect. Okay. All right.
Hey, Catherine, I wanted to add something as well.
Sure.
While you are signing up for text alerts, I want to make sure that I am also lifting up a subscribe link to the First and FAFSA newsletters. As many of you know, getting the right information to the right person at the right time is oftentimes the most challenging. Many people have moved different schools, have maybe started in their new roles. Maybe they have just a different email address. So it's always best to make sure that you are subscribing to newsletter content. Alongside CFNC's resources, the First and FAFSA newsletter is going to be very specific to FAFSA resources, events, trackers, any updates that we're seeing. We are helping all of our partner organizations across the state to at least streamline and lift up all the various FAFSA tools and resources to support you in your work. So if you can subscribe to that, we will help lift up as SEAA and CFNC get all of the FAFSA Day toolkits ready. We will make sure to help streamline those pieces. We send these out every 2 weeks on a Tuesday, so you'll just know that, you know, got to think Tuesday, and you'll know that you can get at least that one-stop shop for all of the FAFSA resources and any other FAFSA specific things that come out. So wanted to give a little plug for that.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I think it's powerful to stay connected this way because it's too much to try to think through where you need to go for different resources. It can be stressful, and if you're connected via text or via the First and FAFSA newsletter, you're going to have a coherent way of following what's going on in the state. And I trust it will just feel less overwhelming, to have that information kind of come into you in a timely way rather than you having to think about where to go. So excellent. Thank you so much. Okay. I'm going to go land on our last slide, which is more about information, and we'll take one last chance to check on our questions. And then we will send you FAFSA Day information that you can share with your students, some of the publicity that you might want to use, the graphics, the link that the students need to register. I mean, these host sites will help a student who drives in. They don't have to register. It just helps them understand how much staff they might need, how much interest there is in their FAFSA event, so they have enough people there to help. Because the idea is to help people one-on-one, and we wouldn't want them to be overwhelmed and have frustrated students and parents. So we do ask for the students to register in advance, but again, only to sort of gauge the numbers. All right, so another opportunity for questions. I wanted to point out, landing on this slide, just who you can reach out to for help. You heard from Chris Charbonneau, who's from my future NC. She spoke specifically to the First in FAFSA Challenge. I helped her a little bit with the tracker, but both of those tools are sponsored by my future NC. There's an email address there as well. Finish the FAFSA is the secure report inside CFNC.org. NCSCAA is a state agency. That's where I'm at. It's where Nicole works as well. So Nicole and I are with the state agency that helps North Carolina pay for education, and FAFSA is key to that. I don't have their logo up here, but key to our efforts is April Query and her team from the CFNC regional representatives. They're at College Foundation, which manages the CFNC.org website and so much of those resources that you all need. So I'm going to pause for a minute. You know, others, my fellow presenters and colleagues, you can feel free to chime in. I'm going to try to put in some resources in the chat, but other than that, we can address some questions. If you want to call them out, I'm not following all the typed in questions myself, so, but call out attention to me or Nicole if you need us for something. We do still have Chris here if it's something that she can help.
Hi there, it's Chris again. The only other thing that I know that I've heard from time to time from our counselors is how to best support our Hispanic Latinx families. And I just wanted to call out a wonderful program. It's the College y Consejos program that Latinx Ed offers. It's free online college advising, and they also have an opportunity to bring cohorts of students both in their junior year and senior year. So if that is something that you are of interest, I went ahead and put a link in the chat to Latinx Ed's College y Consejos. And then the final thing is I've heard from other college counselors that, you know, gosh, I really want to help some of our families who might have immigration status pieces that, you know, you may not be readily, you know, briefed with or aware of. And so there is a planning resource site that's called So Much Potential that I can direct in the links on the chat for those of you that may have students that can and families that can take advantage of this.
Yes, thank you for that. It's important. I'm also putting in, not to overstep April, but I think your YouTube channel is just really fabulous. I wanted to make sure people knew to periodically check there. Really some high quality North Carolina specific resources. So be sure to check that out. Countdown to College for the month of October, financial aid and RDS. There are other playlists. Certainly I picked out the two I thought might interest our audience the most today. So the webinar will be recorded, or excuse me, it is recorded, and the recording will be available on CFNC.org. And I would defer to April and team. Where would they go to check the recording? And I think you told me it would be a few days, and then it would be on CFNC.org.
Yes, it will. So we are going to house it on our YouTube channel. So if you go to YouTube and look for CFNC's page on YouTube, we have our own CFNC page. We're going to have a playlist just for this Countdown to College Education Professionals Week. And so they'll live there. And then we hopefully can also put a link to that YouTube channel on the cfnc.org/C2C page. We have been sending our recordings over to our marketing team so they could, kind of clean them up. And so it'll be a week or so before they are available, but they will be soon.
So just to reiterate, I had a little trouble hearing her, but I got the gist of it. So YouTube is key, but will not be there immediately, but it sounds like there's going to be a playlist for the education professional session, which, by the way, I should put in a plug. There's one this afternoon on RDS, one tomorrow on application. And you may want to say, April, the one on Thursday is about, or correct me if I'm wrong, but the one on Thursday is about COVID impacts to the college access process. So it's going to be a strong one, a real need there. Yes. So there are 3 more. Yep, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, good. Yeah, there was one yesterday. If you missed it, you can check out the recording on the YouTube channel. It had a lot of good general CFNC access. And some of those YouTubes those YouTube videos are about how you do different things on CFNC, which was a lot of what we discussed yesterday. How do you, if you're a student, how do you update your school connection? If you're a counselor, how do you figure out a student who has 2 CFNC accounts? All those kinds of tricky things that you want to get squared away before countdown to college. And then today was about our FAFSA tools. This afternoon's RDS. Tomorrow is applications and prep for our college application week. And then Thursday's that webinar I mentioned about the COVID impacts to college access. So. Okay, all right. Any other questions from the box that we should address for the good of the cause?
I think the only other thing is thank you for calling out that our ncfirstandfafsa.com thing looks to be expired. It just must have just done that. So I am putting the more direct link in the chat line. That's myfuturenc.org, and then you'll see our work first in FAFSA. So go ahead and use that link. And then I'm going to go check on that. I apologize. It looks like it just expired, so we'll have to go check that down. So thank you for calling that out.
Excellent. Yep, got to figure it out. And now we've helped everyone, I think. So yeah, direct link to the first in FAFSA. That's where you go for your tracker and challenge. Finish the FAFSA is the password protected report inside CFNC. It's administered by the state agency because we have the responsibility for the FAFSA data. So we're charged with receiving the federal FAFSA data securely. And thank goodness we have our colleagues at CFI to help us display that inside CFNC and to explain it to all of you as well. We appreciate your patience with all of the different pieces to the FAFSA landscape in North Carolina, and it can be complicated because we have different organizations working together, but we've got a lot of people in the state who are concerned about students and want sincerely to see them succeed, and we hope we can help you help them. So reach out to the CFNC regional representatives, first in FAFSA about the tracker or the challenge, outreach about finish the FAFSA. Oh, and by the way, the handouts, don't forget, before you leave, grab the finish the FAFSA access information and maybe the slides for this show, this presentation. So all those speaker notes will have links and so forth in them as well. So with that, I think we have come to a close. It's about 11:20, so a little bit earlier than we expected, but good information in the hour and 20 minutes we were together. Thank you so much for coming.